Hello and welcome to our first full lesson on Microsoft Excel. Today we're just going to look at some of the basic tools for entering data and moving things around, changing sizes and that sort of thing. Fairly simple, straightforward lesson today. First thing I'll get you to do is create a new document. We'll call this Excel Workbook. We're going to name this Lesson 1. Lesson 1, Editing Information. Hit OK. And as always, it opens up in the Excel web app, which we don't want to use. So hit Open in Excel. Make sure you hit Edit Workbook. Et voila. We end up with our workbook. Now, the data that you'll need for this assignment, you can find in the OneNote there will be an attached workbook called Lesson 1 Demo Doc. You may not edit this document. You cannot save and submit this one. This is a protected worksheet, so you'll only be able to copy the data that's in the worksheet. Or in the worksheets, I should say. So in this workbook, we've got two worksheets, May and June, both with some simple data sets in them. And that's just about it. Copying and pasting with an Excel works pretty much identically to copying and pasting anywhere else. You can always hit Control A to select all data. I highly recommend that you don't do this because spreadsheets have a tendency to be very, very large. You don't want to accidentally grab more data than you need, but clicking and dragging works all the time. Now you'll notice here that this little title says sales volume in units. If I click on the cell, the information that's in the cell appears up in the function bar up here. But when I click here, it's blank. Well, this is because this cell has spilled over. It has too much data to fit within the existing cell size. So it just overlaps with the next cell simply because there's no data in it. If I entered data, which I can do, I'll show you later. If I entered data, basically what would happen is it would occlude this and it would say sales volume and it would end right there. So just so you're aware of what's going on there. So what you're going to do is select the first box, click and drag down to the last box in the next column. And we can do right click copy or Control C. Unlike in other programs, in a worksheet, because there's potential for you to have a lot of cells, a lot of data, what will happen is this little select line appears around the data that you've selected. This is just a visual reference so that you can keep track of it. When I click somewhere else, normally in Microsoft Word, for example, it would just deselect everything, and it still does, but it keeps that reminder there that your data is hanging around. So you copy that data, go over to the workbook that you've created, and in that first cell there, I'm just going to right click and paste or hit Control V, and our data pops into existence. So it always uses the top left cell wherever you click. If I were to click here, my data would appear in these two columns. So the top left cell aligns your data. If we go to, let's go back here and, oops, wrong worksheet. Go back here, go to June, and we're going to take this data as well. Make sure you take all of it, copy it. Now, one thing you have to be really careful about in Excel is if you have any data in the space where you are about to paste, so let's say I have just couple rounded numbers here. If I were to click here and hit Control V to paste, watch what happens to my data. Oopsie. Didn't copy it properly, I guess. There you go. Bang, that cell has been erased. So it's really unfortunate, but there's really no way around that other than to just make sure that there's nothing under where all of the cells you are about to use are about to be pasted. So let's say you've accidentally put this in the wrong place. You didn't overwrite any data, but it's completely wrong. Now you could grab this, hit Control X, which you'll see looks exactly like Control Copy. It doesn't actually erase the data, and I could select somewhere else, Control V, and now it moves it. But you always run that risk of overwriting other data. So one thing you can do is select all of your data, and when you hover your mouse over top of the selected border, you get a move option. So if I click and drag that, it will now allow me to move my selected data. So I'm going to move that up so that it's right alongside May, drop it, and so now you can see my sales volume has been occluded by the next. So occluded, by the way, just means hidden, or there's something in front of it. Something's in the way. So the June has now occluded my sales volume title. So now we've got all of our data lined up here. Now you can, just like in Microsoft Word, we worked in tables for some time, you're able to create new cells, create new rows, shift things around. It's a little bit more intuitive in my mind when you're working in Excel. So we can insert columns, we can insert rows, and we can insert cells. The easiest way to do this is from the Inserts dialogues over here under the Cells drawer on the Home tab. So say for example I'm just going to select June here. I want to insert a cell. Let's start with a row. So I insert a row. What will happen is, so the rows are the horizontal. If I insert a row, it will move all of my data down because it's inserting a row above where I am. Like that. Bingo. So you can see everything is now moved down by one row. If I were to do that here, I could do the same thing. Insert row, or insert sheet row, like that. Okay, so it just shifts all of my data down. I'm just going to undo those two actions. Same thing if I were to insert columns. Inserting columns, though, doesn't insert them above because columns are vertical. It inserts them to the left. So we go insert column, bang. One shows up to the left of my data. So use that, select any one of these things in your June column, anything in your June column, and shift everything over to the left. Now, let's say I want to hide this row because it's there. I've got some important use for it, but realistically, it's just kind of in my way right now. You can hide it. So you can select the rows just by clicking on. See this little down arrow that pops up, and then there's similarly a right arrow when I go over to the rows. So over top of that row, it doesn't have to be selected. Simply right click and click hide, and that row disappears. But you can see, you should be able to see, it's a little bit small, but there's a sort of odd border between the two columns, and that is indicating that there is hidden data there. Now obviously A, B, D also indicates that there's something missing. So if you want to unhide it, you can just right click. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Right click and click unhide. Now if you accidentally select the column beside it, it'll not work. So click unhide. Bingo. Alright, so that's there. We are going to leave this hidden though, so right click on column C and hide it. So you'll still have that column there in the submitted version of your assignment, but it'll be hidden. Now, let's say we want to make our text fit into a single cell. There's a very, very quick and easy way to do this. All you have to do is click and drag like that. Piece of cake. But if you want it to be perfect, you can simply double click on the border of the right hand border of your cell, and it'll expand. Now it's not looking specifically at this top row. If I had any cell that was longer, it will automatically expand this. So when I'm creating spreadsheets that have a list of names for, say, creating a grade book, or if I'm doing some budgeting or whatever, I could use this to automatically expand my cell to include all of the text, or expand the row or column to include all the text. You don't want to do this all the time if you've got lots of text that's going to spill over super long. But especially for titles or short pieces of data, great way to do that. Now you can also delete cells very simply. Now if we're selecting, say we select this first item here, and I hit delete, it does not get rid of the cell, it just gets rid of the data. If I there's no way to sort of select a cell the way you do in Microsoft Word, where you kind of come up to the left side and you get a little selection thing. That doesn't work, so you can't select and then backspace to get rid of a cell, because again it just gets rid of the data. So that's where some of this differs a little bit from Microsoft Word. However, you can use the delete dialog up in the cells drawer. Hit delete cells, and it asks you what you want to do. Do you want to shift all the data to the left? So if I had like more information in these rows, they would hop all over one column to the left. In this case, I'm going to go shift cells up, and it'll shift all this data up by one cell. Zoop. Perfect. So really good if you've accidentally shifted things, not really good if you're just trying to get rid of the data that's in the cell. If you want a blank cell, or temporarily or otherwise, you just want to delete the information by hitting backspace or hitting delete. But using this dialog allows you to shift everything over. Let's auto fit that cell as well. So there we go. We have a very simple table here. It's on a single sheet. We won't bother renaming it. It's pretty straightforward. And all you're going to do is save this. It's already called Lesson 1, Editing Information. So make sure you hit your save button at the top. Here's what I'd like you to do. Last step, File, Save As, save it to your desktop, okay? And then save it as the same file name, and then you're going to drag and drop this into your OneNote to hand it in as Assignment 1. Or, well, you should really just title the page Lesson 1, Editing Information. And that's about it. So, hopefully you found this lesson fairly straightforward, and we'll see you the next time around.